Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today we're going to take a look at recent sales for vintage mint on card Kenner Star Wars. We might have a couple of Palatoy in here, but some big time items sold, as you can tell by this thumbnail. And we're going to start off with some of the early card backs and kind of keep it focused by character. A lot of Luke's, a lot of Leia's. Really interesting stuff that's sold here recently. First, let's start off with some 12 backs that our good friend Gold Star Tech had at auction. This was a very nice looking 12 back, a Stormtrooper punched example with the target price sticker. We just saw a 12 back A SKU on the footer stand Stormtrooper sell at Hakes for big time money. This one sold for a much more reasonable price, and again, eBay is doing their fun thing where they don't show the final sales price, but it was a big number, but not too big. It was in the $800 range if memory served. I don't know what is going on with eBay, why they start hiding the sales prices. It's very annoying, but it was around 800 bucks, I think, is where this one ended up at auction. Crystal clear blister, some very light waves to the blister, and a couple of very minor card creases. I still think it gets the overall 80 grade, but that's a very nice example of the Stormtrooper in pretty good shape for the actual figure. No discoloration that I could see there. Next up was a 12-back C-3PO. This one also sold at auction around the same time as the Stormtrooper. It had some light, faint veins in the upper right-hand corner, but it was an unpunched example. Clear blister, very nice, probably a 75, 80, 85, somewhere in there for the sub scores. This one sold for $572, which I thought was a particularly good price for a 12C C-3PO. Another 12C, this was a punched example for R2-D2. It was a yellowed blister, though, so that I was a little surprised, actually, that it sold for the price it did. But we just talked about a 12C that sold on Hakes. That was an AFA 80 or 80 plus clear blister that sold in that $1,200 price point. It might have even been slightly below that. But this one was a yellowed blister, Children's Palace price sticker in the upper left-hand corner. I remember that store. This one sold for $682, which again I thought was maybe a little high given the yellow blister, but it was in very good shape and probably grades a yellowed 80 or so would be my guess on that one. Here's a very rare item, and I mean, I don't know where Gold Star Tech gets they must have had a huge collection come in that they're just selling off slowly, but this was the Takara 7-inch version of C-3PO, and that one did not have the error on the card back. Some of these have Stormtrooper written where C-3PO is. So this is the corrected version, the non-error version of the card back for the 7-inch Takara. That one sold for $649, which also I thought was a pretty good price. The blister was in really great shape on that one. Good example, a really good candidate to send in to be graded, because I think that one would grade very well given that the blister did not have any dings on it that I could tell at all. $649 is borderline a deal for, or a steal for that one. And we talked about in my last What to Buy video, maybe 2 weeks ago, that AFA/CIB listed, I think, all of the special action figure sets. And this is the only one that has sold so far as of the making of this video. This was a clear blister droid set with R5-D4, the Power Droid, and the Death Star Droid. This one was unpunched with the special offer sticker in the upper right-hand corner. This was only graded an AFA 70, but still, we're talking a very rare Series 2 3-pack. Box 60, window 85, figures got 75s. And, you know, again, this is a very rare item. I'm not sure why it got a 75 for the figure score. The only thing I can think about is that the R5-D4 has what looks to be some staining going on the sticker. And that was enough to bring the overall score down for the figure score to a 75. And when you have a 3-pack like this, the way the grading companies grade the figures is whichever figure is in the worst possible condition, that's what the grade will be for all of them. So it's unfortunate, but that's the way it should be, I guess, given that they're all part of the same item. So the Death Star Droid and the Power Droid look fine, but because that R5-D4 has staining on the actual sticker, The overall figure score got the 75. And you can also see where it's got a tear on the back of the box, which is why it got a 60 for the box. But that's a pretty incredible item, and the special offer that's mentioned on the front in the upper right is related to backdrops that we have here. So complete with exclusive Star Wars backdrops as shown. So that's why this one was a special offer. So inside the box, apparently there is a backdrop that you can use to display your droids. That one did sell for $6,000. That was the cheapest of all of them, that at least as of now. The rest of them are still for sale. They're all very high grade, very expensive. But that special action figure droid set did sell pretty quickly after these were listed by CIB. Next up, a low grade, but this is a rare foreign variant. This is a 20-back La Guerre des Étoiles Kenner Canada version for Darth Vader. This one did have blister support, as you can see there. It was an overall AFA 60. And so the card got a 60, blister 80, figure 80. So two high subscores. But for some reason, this one got a 60. And it looks like it's got some, some kind of damage there that goes all the way down the card. And my guess is that this was part of some multi-pack. That's the only thing I can think of. It has a huge sticker damage that goes all the way down from the name pill all the way to the bottom of the card. And so potentially this was part of some sort of multi-pack. That's the only thing I can think of. You can see a stock number there in the upper right-hand corner. And, some of those like service merchandise stores, they had long stickers that you'd often see on Mint On cards. So that could be the other option, is that it was some long service merchandise kind of stock number that's very long with lots of digits on it, a dot matrix printer receipt type thing. So that potentially could be what it is. But, it's a pretty cool item. And the price stayed relatively reasonable given that it was AFA graded with an archival case and a blister support. It sold for 570 Canadian dollars, which is 408 US dollars. That's a really cool item, despite the damage. It's got a nice history to it. I feel like that's a pretty good deal for what it is. And you can see on the back there, it also had some kind of weird residue at the bottom of the, towards the middle bottom of the card back there. So, either way, I just think it's kind of a cool item that is worth every penny of $400. In higher grade, you can probably 5 times that number. This thing could sell for $2,000 in a very high grade. So very cool item. Next up, this was a 21 back Secret Star Wars action figure offer. So this is obviously the mail away Bosk offer on the Star Wars racetrack for red snags. This was unpunched with a Sears price sticker, and that sold for $660. So those red Secret Star Wars action figure offers on Star Wars cards are very expensive in general. And this was a beautiful clear blister, probably about an 80 grade would be my guess at first blush. I didn't look at it super close, but $660 is what that one sold for. Very nice example. And then we've got the Secret Star Wars action figure offer on Empire Strikes Back cards. 2 of those sold. These are all ESB 21 backs, transition cards like we've talked about, where only the first 21 characters sold on this particular Empire Strikes Back card back. The only one I've got for this is the Death Star droid, I think. And a lot of collectors like these transition cards. This was the Death Squad commander, and it looked like it was in pretty good shape overall. That sold for $341. Pretty nice deal, I feel like, if you ask me, for the Death Squad commander. And then the other one that sold was C-3PO. This one sold at auction as well. That one sold for $394 US dollars for that same particular card back. It's often called the 21 back G, I believe, for the Secret Star Wars Bosk mail away. But both of those were punched examples, with the Death Squad commander having a Child World price sticker. The C-3PO did not have any price sticker. Both of those were pretty high grade, though, and I thought pretty good deals at auction. Next up, another transition card, except for Return of the Jedi. And so, like the 21 back ESB, the 48 back free 9-num offer only has Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars characters as part of as who appeared on this particular card back. So this is the Tusken Raider. It did have some damage to it. It wasn't perfect, but it had a little crease in the upper right, and then it looked like it had some staining to the cape of the Tusken Raider. And so that kept the price down, but it's a really cool item. Very tough to find the Tusken Raider on this particular card back. In fact, I don't remember this particular character, the Tusken Raider, ever showing up on this card back on eBay. And I'm sure it has, I just don't remember it. But if it has, it was a long time ago, because I don't remember any of them ever coming up. It's just one of those card backs for certain characters, it's very tough to find. And so that one sold for $291. Again, in higher grade, you can probably pretty easily double, if not triple, close to triple that number, certainly 2.5 times in higher grade. But that was a cool item, I thought. Next up was a hard-to-find clear blister for a 77 back A Bespin security guard. And that one sold for $202.50, which, again, I thought was a great deal, given that it's got the clear blister. You don't usually see 77 back A's with clear blisters. Next up, we've got a Stormtrooper. I got 2 different 41 back D's that sold. This was an unpunched Stormtrooper clear blister that sold for $620. Big number there. We just talked about a 41D, I believe, that sold on Hakes for the Death Squad commander. And I don't think actually it was a clear blister. It was actually a yellowed blister, but AFA graded, and it sold for stupid money, like $1,300. And, you know, I was thinking out loud during the making of that video that it must be very tough to find the 41D Death Squad commander, because it was a yellow blister and it still sold for 4 figures. So some of these 41Ds are very pricey. This Stormtrooper is one that we've seen in the past, and it sold for $620. And this was a relist for the 41D R2-D2. This is, to my knowledge, the last solid dome R2-D2 before they switched over to the sensor scope R2-D2 on the 45 back Star Wars display arena offer. This was a beauty. You know, it wasn't perfect. Obviously, it had some creasing in the upper right, you know, or above the hang tab, excuse me. And it sold for $590 on a second go around. It sold, and then, you know, sometimes they have to relist because of non-paying eBay buyers. But that one is a beauty, and, you know, pretty tough to find that one before they switched over. It's kind of the last hurrah for the solid dome R2-D2. Moving on to the sensor scope, we had an autographed tri-logo. This one was the R2-D2 sensor scope, unpunched, obviously some wear to the card back, but it was signed by Kenny Baker. And I sent this out to my Patreon supporters and said, this is a good candidate to send to CAS for what's called their Yellow Label Signature Series. And you can send it in, pay a fee for the James Spence authentication, which is like $45 to get the autograph authenticated, and then you pay to actually have the mint on card authenticated. So it's not cheap to do it. It costs about $100 or so after the James Spence fee and then the grading for the actual item. But it looks really nice inside the acrylic case with the yellow Signature Series label. So that's one of them. That sold at $296. And then Gold Star Tech also had another one, which we'll show in a second. But I wanted to show this one. This was, I believe, picked up by a Patreon supporter. He found it and was kind enough to say, hey, can you send me any eBay affiliate link for this one? I'm thinking about buying it. So I did send it to him. I don't know if he bought it or not, but it was an AFA 80 Power of the Force R2-D2 pop-up lightsaber that was listed for, I thought, a really great price of 1,000 pounds, which is $1,258 US. In an auction, I would argue that this price is a little low. You could probably expect to pay $1,400 to $1,600 pretty easily for an AFA 80 pop-up lightsaber R2-D2. Unpunched, no price sticker, and then the blister was actually hardly yellowed at all. So I thought that was a great deal. Now, the label does say non-yellowed, and it has yellowed since grading, but look at that blister. It's hardly yellowed at all, and I thought a really good deal at $1,258 US. I think here is the other autograph item I wanted to show you. This is a Peter Mayhew Power of the Force Chewbacca that's signed, and that one sold for $410. I like the gold for the actual autograph. It really pairs nicely with kind of the gold colors for the Rockstar alternate image Chewbacca that's on the card back. So that one did sell for $410, and another good candidate to send to CAS for their Signature Series grading. Next up, I've got some Luke Farm Boys that sold, and Luke Jedis as well. This is the dark brown hair 47 back free Forlam offer Luke Farm Boy on a beautiful clear blister Empire Strikes Back, unpunched, no price sticker. I think that's the dark brown hair. Don't quote me on that. It might just be the standard Hong Kong dark, regular brown hair, but to me at first blush, it looks like the dark brown hair. And that one sold for $954. The Luke wasn't perfect. It did look like it had some kind of either mold or just some discoloration going on. So that'll hold the figure score back. But man, that card back is in mint condition, and the blister is also in great condition. I think it probably gets an overall 80. If the figure itself was more mint, it would probably have a good chance at an 80 plus. But because that figure's got some kind of mold going on it, it probably holds the figure score back to a 75. Probably still gets an overall 80, would be my guess, though, just given how beautiful the condition is on that one. Next up, we've got a Luke Jedi. This was a blue lightsaber Luke Jedi, unpunched with a JCPenney price sticker, very light yellowing to the blister. This is the 65 back B, which is where the blue lightsaber is known to show up a lot for Luke Jedi. And that was, again, also sold for big money at $905. But we've seen some AFA graded examples that have crossed over $2,000, believe it or not. So this blue lightsaber Luke mint on card, I thought was actually a really fair deal. Next up, we've got a regular Luke farm boy with the blonde hair on a I think it was a 65B. 65 back B, Luke farm boy, yellowed blister, but overall really good shape, punched example. That one sold for $497. That's borderline highway robbery. If it doesn't have any cracks to the blister, that was a really good deal. That one has really come back down to earth on price when they're yellowed like this. But very good deal there for a Luke Skywalker farm boy on a 65D. Here was the big one, though, and I was curious to see what this one would sell for. And it's really bugging me that eBay does this, but I finally got this to show up. It sold for $25.75. It was an AFA 75 Princess Leia on a Return of the Jedi 77 back A. And at first blush, you may not understand why this one sold for so much, but if you know, you know. The Princess Leia First 12 figure, Princess Leia Organa, on a Return of the Jedi card back is very scarce and very rare and very pricey. This was a beautiful unpunched example with just light yellowing to the blister, and it was an AFA 75. The figure score got a 70, so it must have some degradation going on, and you can kind of see that with the arms and legs not being the same color as the torso on this one, but who cares? Who cares? This is a very rare item, and I was so tempted to bid on this. It's a beauty, and it did sell for $25.75. I'm not shocked by that sales price at all. I've seen them on Facebook sell for more than this, $2,800 to $3,000 in higher grade. So for a 75 at $25.75 with just light yellowing to the blister, yes, please. That's a very good deal, very fair deal. I don't think it was a steal, but it was a very fairly priced final bid in this auction. So $25.75 on that one. Next up, another Leia from Gold Star Tech. This was a clear blister, 31 back B, AFA 80 plus. Man, what a beauty on that one. 85, 85, 80 were the final sales prices. Now, in all fairness, there was some staining on the cape there, it looked like. So you can kind of see on the cape, it's got a little bit of staining on the left-hand side of the figure, but it's unpunched. No price sticker, clear blister, and it sold for $13.80. And whether someone will be disappointed by that or not, I don't know. But to me, it's probably more like a 75 for the figure score. Around the neck, it looks like it has some degradation. And then on the actual cape, that could be reflections in the photos. I don't know for a fact, okay? But, I don't know if it really matters. At $13.80, you're paying top dollar for it, in my opinion. But, if you're happy with it, you're happy with it. That's a really cool item, though. 31 back B, Leia Bespin. And then on to Brian's Toys for the last three items. This one was a 77 back A, yellowed blister, taped blaster is how they label it. So some of the stormtroopers on the 77As were, the blaster was packed inside the figure's hand, and some of them were taped to the inside of the blister. Obviously, the tape has come off, but it's still got the tape attached to the blaster. So it's labeled as such now for some of them by AFA. If it has it inside the figure's hand, they just say Stormtrooper. They don't say taped blaster. So whatever that's worth, AFA 80, yellowed blister, punched example, and it sold for $425. And then here was a beautiful Palatoy 65 back D clear blister Darth Vader. This one was a stunner. I was really tempted to bid on this one, but it was ending at the same time as some Tri-Logos that I was bidding on eBay. I went after the Tri-Logos. I did win the Han Solo Bespin and then the FX7 Tri-Logo. Both of those were AFA 85s. I had to pick and choose. I couldn't buy everything. I mean, I spent a lot of money at the same time this one was ending, but this one was a beauty. I really would have liked to have had it, but bad timing, bad timing. AFA 80, 80, 85, 80 were the sub scores. Beautiful card back, 65 back D Palatoy, and that sold for $360, which I thought was a really good deal, and probably even a little bit under market, if you ask me. Next up, and finally, was a 75 plus 65 back Zuckuss clear blister unpunched, no price sticker. That one sold for $361. It was a 65 back A, again, 75, 80, 80 clear blister. So that one was a beauty and sold for, again, for $361 on 37 bids. I hope you enjoyed this really fast-paced look at mint on cards that sold. Please leave me a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back soon.